Sandhan, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Hello, my dear students. In this lecture, we are going to talk about The Monkey's Paw by W. Jacobs. A very interesting, popular, favorite on the stage, a one-act play. What is a one-act play? Remember, traditional drama in most of parts of the world, including India, had 5 acts. It went on for about 3 hours. But you had something called the one-act play, which became very popular in the 20th century, when people did not have enough time probably to sit and watch a 3-hour play. And certain plays became very popular. Initially, the one-act play was like a curtain raiser, or when the stage was getting ready, they just enacted the play. But not anymore. Today, the one-act play is a very, very popular form of entertainment. Particularly, I think, in schools and colleges, when you want to enact something, the one-act play comes in very handy. So this lecture is about The Monkey's Paw. Who is the writer? W. Jacobs. I have 2 scenes for you here, my dear students. In one scene, the cozy comfort of a dining table, a family, a happy family, enjoying themselves, enjoying the food, enjoying the conversation, enjoying probably the warmth of being inside a house. And we are not talking about India, we are talking about England, where the winters can be terrible, can be awful. And therefore, I have for you, my dear students, a total contrast in the second picture. What do you see in the second picture? A lonely road, dark, wintry, not much of wind maybe, but cold, a chill. If I were to ask you, where would you like to be? I'm sure 99% of you will say you would like to be on the first picture, right on the left-hand side, the cool, cozy warmth of a living room, of a dining table with mom and dad with you, and the joy. Well, let's see what happens in this one-act play. Where is the play set? The setting, it's a cold winter night. You remember the previous scene, right? A cold winter night. Do you remember the deserted road? Of course you do. Not a single person. So imagine you're standing at the window and you're looking out, and this is what you see. And then there is a knock at the door. Somebody comes. You know, when it's dark and quiet and wintry and night, if somebody knocks at the door, even the knock sounds quite loud, much louder. And if you have a little imagination, you'd probably think of a ghost or something, right? A mystery person walking in. You might have seen many movies like that, read a lot of short stories or novels. So there's a knock at the door. Somebody enters. I'll tell you more about the story later. And there is conversation. When it's a dark, wintry night, you don't talk about serious things maybe. You don't talk about the pleasures and comfort of family life. Because remember, this is a one-act play and the writer has to make it interesting. So what does the person talk about? We are in England. The person talks about mystery. He talks of exploits. He talks of the snake charmer. He talks of the Indian fakir. He talks of the rope trick, etc. And what is it that the entire play is about? It is about a monkey's paw. Remember, that is the title. The Monkey's Paw is the title of this one-act play. What is a monkey's paw? You know, we have hands and legs, but you know, animals have got 4 legs. And then we don't talk about their feet and their hands. We don't talk about their fingers, right? We talk about their claws probably. So the paw is the hand. If you can think of a glove which you probably wear in winter, if you can think of a glove, something like that, it's the monkey's paw. Would you like to have a paw in your hand? I'm sure most of us would shudder at the idea. Imagine holding in your hand the paw of a monkey. Obviously, if you're holding the paw, the monkey should be dead. And the fact that it is a dead animal's paw will make it even worse for us. Most of us would be quite squeamish about even attempting to touch that. What is the plot, my dear students? The plot, the theme is of superstitions and blind beliefs. There are many of us who believe in a number of superstitions. The black cat, the cawing of the crow, etc., etc. Some people believe that number 13 is bad. Some people believe 3 is bad. Some people believe that some day of the week is bad. Somebody talks about a night being evil, etc., etc. So you have, somebody says you have to have it this way. You must eat this with this. You must eat this without. So we've got all kinds of superstitions and blind beliefs. There are people who would say, oh, you sneezed and therefore something bad's going to happen. You can't go out now, etc., etc. Okay? So there is that in this story. There is also the desire for wishing. How often you might be saying, how I wish I were. How I wish I had. All of us like to wish. But can you imagine if you say, how I wish I could fly, and you suddenly started flying? Would you like it, my dear students? Maybe not. And I'm sure the birds wouldn't like it. So what happens when you get a chance to wish? What are the effects? There is also in this story what every human being probably wants, and that is the desire for a better life. How I wish I had more money. How I wish I had a car, a scooter, one more car. How I wish I had a bigger house. How I wish I had this. How I wish I had that. All this is the wishing. But of course, all this is propelled by the desire for a better life. If you could have your wish come true, and if you had to pay a big price for it, would you want it, my dear students? We would think twice. If you were told you can have this, but you have to give up that, you will have to weigh both and see what is important. Do I really want this wish to come true? You've probably heard of a fairy tale, an English fairy tale, the King Midas, who was so greedy for wealth, he wanted everything that he touched to become gold. Gold, he loved it. He wanted to be the richest man. And can you imagine what happened when his little daughter came running and he embraced her? The daughter became a statue of gold. Do you think any father wants his daughter to be a statue of gold? However much he might like gold. So remember, he learned a lesson. So that is the price that you pay. It's got nothing to do with monkey's paw. I just gave you the example of King Midas to tell you that sometimes if our wishes come true, we might have to pay a big price, a big price. And do we really want to? Let's come to the story proper, my dear students. The story of Monkey's Paw. Remember, it's a play. It's a one-act play. But as we cannot read the entire play here, as I don't have 4 or 5 people who can play the characters in the play, what I'm doing is simplifying it for you by telling you the story. What is the story of the monkey's paw? Remember that first scene that we had? A family at dinner? Well, this family does not consist of 2 little children as that picture had. This family is a mother and a father, Mr. and Mrs. White, and their son, Herbert. Herbert is their only child who loves fun. He loves teasing his mother and his father. It's a happy family. It's a cheerful family. Inside the room, inside the house, there is warmth, there is comfort, there is love. What about the outside? It's a cold, wintry night. So cold that even a little bit of air coming in reminds you about how cold it is outside. So they want to shut all the windows and the doors. And it is at that time that there is a knock and the arrival of the visitor. On a cold, wintry night, if a visitor comes in, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some mystery. So the visitor comes in and he starts talking. He says he's just come back from India. Remember, for the Western world, India is a country of miracles and magic and fakirs and snake charmers and elephants and what have you. So here comes Sergeant Morris, and he tells us that he's just come back from India, that he met a fakir who had a paw, the monkey's paw, a magic paw. Okay, he has a magic paw, but that's not the end. He tells us a story about it. And what is the story? That a person can have 3 wishes with that paw. 3 wishes, only 3. And only 3 people could use it. After that, the paw would lose its value. That means after 3 people have wished on it, it becomes a useless paw. It does not have charm anymore. Now, Mr. and Mrs. White and Herbert are listening to this story. As I told you, Herbert loves fun. He keeps ragging his parents and saying, oh, his mom should have more hands so that she could finish all the work, etc., etc. There's a lot of fun and frolic. And the father says that he wished that he had 200 pounds so that he could pay off the debt. Now the Sergeant Major Morris warns them that the wish might come true, but there is always some price to pay. Okay, as I told you earlier, if you had to give up something, you would wonder whether what you're getting is more important or what you have to give up is more important. So, Mr. White says how he wished he had 200 pounds. Wishing for 200 pounds so that the debt can be paid is not wrong. But Sergeant Major Morris had already warned us that something harmful could also happen. Anyway, Herbert has night duty. He leaves. The Whites are still at home. After some time, Herbert has not yet come back. The parents are worried. Why hasn't Herbert come back? They notice out of the upper window, when they look down at the road, remember that lonely road, but now it's morning. When they look out, they notice that there's a strange man who hesitantly comes in. He comes in and he tells them that last night there was an accident in the factory and Herbert was crushed to death. He also tells them that the company says that they do not own any responsibility, that it was the carelessness of Herbert that caused this accident to take place. However, because of Herbert being a good worker, they want to pay his family 200 pounds as compensation. My dear students, I hope you are with me in the story. What was the wish? The wish was for 200 pounds. But Sergeant Major Morris had warned us that the wish might come true, but there would be something bad happening along with it. Can you imagine? They did get their 200 pounds, but what did they have to pay for the 200 pounds? The life of their dear son. Herbert was dead, crushed by the machinery at the factory. And in compensation, the company paid them 200 pounds. Well, it seems as if the wish has come true. Does the story end here? Certainly not, my dear students. The father goes to the factory to claim the body of his son, which he does. The body is so badly crushed by the machinery that he can almost not be recognized except for the clothes that he wears. The funeral takes place. Mrs. White is asked not to go there because she cannot bear to see the sight of her son's body so badly mangled in the accident. She does not go. The Whites are very unhappy, naturally, having lost their only son. The 200 pounds does not give them any joy, of course. And then suddenly, Mrs. Herbert realizes that Sergeant Major Morris had told them that they could have 3 wishes. And 2 more wishes are left. They've had only 1 wish, so why not another wish? So she picks up the paw and says, "I wish Herbert were alive." Mr. White realizes that Herbert's body was in a terrible shape. Nothing happens for some time. Mr. and Mrs. White are convinced that it was a pure coincidence, the death of Herbert and the compensation of 200 pounds. They are about to sleep when they hear a knock on the door. Mrs. White rushes to open the door and says, "Oh, my son is back. But why did he take so long?" He took so long because, after all, the graveyard is quite some distance. You know, the graveyard is where he was buried, and he had to walk and come. So naturally, it took so long. But Mr. White remembers the condition of the son's body, and he's worried. There is a knock at the door. Mrs. White rushes to open the door, hoping to embrace her son. And at that time, Mr. White picks up the paw and wishes again that Herbert were back where he was. Where he was, my dear students, and what is that? Back in his coffin in the graveyard, the 3rd wish. Mrs. White rushes to the door, opens the door, but there is no one there. A story of mystery, a story of suspense, a story of blind beliefs. But it is as if the 3 wishes came true because of the power of the monkey's paw. Have you understood the story, my dear students? If you have, let's quickly look at the characters that we have in this one-act play. We have Mr. and Mrs. White, an elderly couple, happy with the little that they have, loving, doting parents of their only son, Herbert. Mr. White is more likely to doubt, to question Sergeant Major Morris. He leads him on. He allows him to talk, encourages him to talk about his visit to India, while probably he does not believe all that he is saying. Mrs. White, the dutiful housewife, the loving mother and wife, taking good care of her husband and son, being teased, being bullied playfully by the son, who realizes how much of work his mother has to put in to keep this family going. Because remember, my dear students, they were not rich. Otherwise, the father, Mr. White, would not have wished for 200 pounds. So that's Mr. and Mrs. White. Remember, we met them the first time when they were all having supper on a cold winter night. In total contrast, inside the house was warmth and comfort and love and joy and togetherness. Their only son, Herbert, a youth, a playful young man, as most young men are, a good son, happy to be working, to be earning money, to be supporting his parents in their old age. Herbert is a good boy. He wants to work, he wants to earn money, he wants to do well in life. And then we have Sergeant Major Morris, the visitor. The visitor on that cold winter, lonely night. The visitor who comes in with a tale, not tale, maybe tales of mystery and magic, of India, which he says he had just visited, of fakirs, of holy men, of mystics. He comes here with interesting stories. One doesn't know how much of it is true and how much is not true. But certainly he has a monkey's paw, which he says has been blessed by a fakir, already used by 2 people, but can be used by the third for 3 wishes. He also warns them that anyone who wishes something also has to face something bad. He warns Mr. and Mrs. White. In spite of that, they wish for 200 pounds, for which they have to pay a heavy price. The 5th character, not very important, the company representative, who I told you comes the next morning with 200 pounds and the sad news of the tragic end of Herbert White. He doesn't have much role to play, but remember, he's instrumental in bringing the 200 pounds, and thereby making one part of the wish come true. And that is why I've mentioned him also as one of the characters in this one-act play. So you've got Mr. and Mrs. White, you've got Herbert, you've got Sergeant Major Morris, and you have the company representative. Can you quickly think of the words that you can associate with these people? Can you imagine them in that wonderful room, the dining room, the living room, the warmth, the closeness, the family feeling, the togetherness, all this to be shattered the next day when the company representative comes in to give them the news? Can you think of Herbert? Can you imagine this young boy at home, playful, enjoying, pulling people's legs, including Sergeant Major Morris's, not believing at all in the efficacy of the monkey's paw, does not believe in wishes, does not believe in superstitions, does not believe in what Sergeant Major Morris says about things coming true. And probably because of all this, he pays the price with his own death. What effect does the play have? What effect does the play have? The effect is one of mystery. Because, when they throw the monkey's paw in one scene, and then she says, "I saw it move." Mrs. White screams, "I saw it move," as if she can literally feel the life, the mystery within the monkey's paw. I've not seen a monkey's paw detached from its body, my dear students. But remember, Sergeant Major Morris says he's come back from a visit to India. He lives in England, and therefore he brings these tales of the Eastern world. The West always looked at the East as a land of magic, as a land of mysticism, at some stage as a land of spiritual thought. So you have this entire mystery. How true is it? Mr. and Mrs. White probably asked themselves, how true is it? Is it because we had a wish that we lost our only son? Should we have not asked for the 200 pounds? Is this the price that we have to pay for such a simple wish? There is that mystery. There is also fear of the unknown, fear of power, supernatural power. Did the fakir bless it? Was he a tantric? Did he do some black magic? There is this fear. They are afraid, especially after the company representative comes with the news that their only son, Herbert, was killed in an accident last night when he was working in his factory. To human beings, what they know, what they've seen is always clear, is always comforting. But what they have not seen, the unknown, the inexplicable. Why did the paw move? Why did Sergeant Major Morris come with such a big story? They have not been to India. They do not know the kind of what they think probably is black magic that could be done in some part of the world which they have never visited. So the inexplicable, what you cannot explain, what is unknown to you, what you do not know, what you have not seen, what happens, that also comes across in this play. And about the effect, my dear students, the ending perturbs me. The ending mystifies me. What really happened? Was that knock with the second wish really Herbert's knock? Do you think Herbert got up out of the coffin, walked and came, that mangled body? Do you think he walked and came to the front door? Do you think he knocked at the door or rang the bell as his mother thought? And do you think he came in the form in which he was? And what is that? Totally crushed. Remember, a body which could not even be recognized. Do you think he came like that? Is it possible? And then, to my mind, even more perturbing, even more uncertain, even more mysterious, even more fearful, even more awful and horrible is the fact that the father wishes the third time. The third wish that he is allowed. And what is the third wish? That my son should go back. Because he does not want a mangled Herbert to be alive. Probably half a hand, half a leg, we don't know. There's no description. That depends purely on our imagination. So what is the effect that the play creates? Of mystery, fear, the unknown, the inexplicable. Is it true? Did really my wish cause the death of Herbert? Did I get 200 pounds because I wished? Or was the 200 pounds going to come? Is it true that there was a one-to-one correspondence? That if I did this, if I wished this, something bad would happen? These are probably inexplicable. These are probably mysteries. And the writer, W. Jacobs, leaves these unanswered. He does not tell us what was there on the other side of the door. We as readers, we as audience, we as spectators, we are with Mr. and Mrs. White inside the house. We also hear the knock, but we do not know what is on the other side of the door. Can you understand that, my dear students? Why that inexplicable, why that unknown adds to the mystery element of the play, adds to the fear. Next time we wish, we would be scared because we don't want to say how I wish something and then realize that I have to pay a bigger price for that. I wouldn't want to do that. And therefore, the effect is one of mystery, of fear, of the inexplicable. Let's look at the title, my dear students. The title of the one-act play is Monkey's Paw. When you first read the title, it doesn't give you any idea what it is about. Because none of us, at least not me, have ever seen a monkey's paw. So when I began reading the play for the first time, I had no idea what the monkey's paw is in the play. What does the title mean? Does it really refer to a living monkey and its paw? No idea till I read the play. But the title, Monkey's Paw, is very, very apt and appropriate. I'm sure in school you've answered questions like, justify the title. If you had to do a question here and answer here on justify the title, Monkey's Paw, I'm sure you would have no problem because the entire story revolves around it. The first 5 or 10 minutes of the one-act play with the family at dinner and fun and frolic is only for 10 minutes. After that, Sergeant Major Morris comes in and tells us the story. And after that, there is no getting away from the monkey's paw. The entire story, all the incidents of the one-act play, ever since Sergeant Major Morris came into the house, it all revolves around the monkey's paw. The title also draws our attention to the belief as well as the skepticism. Why am I putting these two words together? The two words are opposites. Mr. and Mrs. White, to a great extent, and probably Sergeant Major Morris too, believed in the powers of the monkey's paw, believed in the efficacy of wishes, believed in the power of the fakir who put a spell on the monkey's paw. So there is belief. On the other side, when we look at Herbert, there is skepticism. And what is skepticism, my dear students? Doubting. Can it be? Will it happen? Is there any such power? One can do that. One can have skepticism because of fear. One can also have skepticism because of disbelief. I do not believe in all this, says Herbert. All this is just a tale. A tale, a story, varta che. There is no truth to it. So there is skepticism. As an audience, as a reader, we are free to take any side. We can believe with Mr. and Mrs. White that a spell has been cast on the monkey's paw, and everything that Sergeant Major Morris told us is the ultimate truth. Or we can go to the other side and we can be skeptical about everything. So, there is both belief and there is skepticism. In the play, there is also a dread, a fear. A great fear is called dread. There is dread of the unknown. I mentioned earlier words like the inexplicable. Ancient man, the cavemen, were scared of the solar and lunar eclipse because remember, they thought that the snakes were swallowing up the sun or the moon. They were scared because it was the unknown. Today, you and I, my dear students, know what causes an eclipse. And therefore, we are not scared of eclipses. We might do a number of rituals during that, but that's another part. We are not scared because we know what exactly happens. We know how the shadow falls. We know how one comes between the other. And that is why you have the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse. We also know days in advance, why years in advance, when there will be a solar or a lunar eclipse. So there is no dread of the unknown. So the title is very appropriate because right from the moment you hear the title, you are in the area of the unknown. So what do we have here, my dear students? We have a one-act play with just 4 characters and a 5th, if you please, the company representative. We have it all happening one night and the next morning. We have here a family, a husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs. White, with their son Herbert. We have a visitor who has come from India, Sergeant Major Morris. And you have all the mystery, all the fear, all the dread of the unknown being created by that single item, the monkey's paw. The entire story revolves around it. The beginning is so quiet and nice and cheerful and peaceful. But that lasts for a very short while because it seems as if when the door opens to let in the Sergeant Major Morris, along with it we bring in all the dread, all the fear, all the mystery of that outside world. Remember what we saw in that first picture when we saw the unknown outside, the dark, wintry night. It's a one-act play. Remember, in a one-act play, you have only one theme. You have very few characters. You know that there can be scenes, but there cannot be other acts. The one act or the ekanki has only one act. What does it mean? We do not generally move to different places. The entire story takes place only in the house of the Whites. The period is very short. The characters are very limited. And the effect, the aim of the writer is to create a particular effect or to tell us a single story or to have one character portrayal. So in this play, my dear students, in this one-act play, you will notice that we see all the characteristic features of a one-act play. What is that? One theme, few characters, one effect, all of that coming across very well. It would be a good idea to go back home now and read the play, because the dread, the fear, the mystery that I've been talking about will come across much better when you see how Sergeant Major Morris describes the powers of the paw. When he talks about the fakir, when he talks about his travels to India, remember we live in India and therefore there's no mystery for us. but for the Englishman, the Britisher, who had never come to India to listen to these stories, was very interesting. So there is that effect of mystery. All this will come to you much if you read the play. You should also read the play, preferably with 2 or 3 of you playing the different characters, because then the total effect of a play will come. Remember, it is important as much to enact a play as it is to read a play, because then with your voice modulation, with your acting maybe, you will make the play far more effective. Read the play also, my dear students, to see how beautifully, in such a short span of time, a writer like W. Jacobs, is able to create the total atmosphere of dread, fear, and mystery. The one-act play is a very important form of the 20th century. Each age probably sees the growth and development of a particular genre. Different genres, different literary forms in different ages, as you would have seen in your study of the history of English literature. Well, in the 20th century, there was, of course, the short story, there was science fiction, and along with that, you also had the one-act play. So go back home, my dear students, and read the one-act play, and you will see how effectively it has been used by W. Jacobs. As for your questions, remember, we can talk about the character sketches of Mr. and Mrs. White. We can talk about Herbert, and of course we can talk about the Sergeant Major Morris. For your short notes, we can talk about the ending of the play. We can talk about the title of the play. We can talk about mystery in the play. And for your MCQs, remember, where did Sergeant Major Morris come from? So you have your answer, India. How did Herbert died? Because of, and then you would have 4 options, because remember, in our MCQs, we have 4 options. So as you are reading the play, you will also have to see what kind of questions you are likely to get and how you have to prepare for these questions. So read the play, make a noting of all these points that I have told you, so that when you start preparing for your exams, you have a clear idea of how to go about it. So please list the characteristic features of Mr. White, Mrs. White, Herbert, Sergeant Major Morris. You can't do a character sketch of the company representative because he comes in for a very short while. When you're doing the title, remember the points that I gave you, the appropriateness of the title. When we're talking about the mystery, when we're talking about the 3 wishes, you will have to talk about something of your own imagination, because the writer does not tell us whether Herbert really came to the door or not. But you can use your imagination and go along with the suggestion that probably he came, because that's what Mrs. White thinks. He took so long because he had to walk from the graveyard to here. But remember, even thinking about it frightens us. So Mr. and Mrs. White must have been really frightened to imagine that their son probably was coming to life. But Mr. White did not want that to happen. So you have got your long questions, you have your short questions, and you have your MCQs. But in order to be able to do all this, it's very important to pick up the text and read the text carefully so that you can answer all these questions. The monkey's paw, a favorite all-timer, because it is easy to enact, because all that you need is only one room, the scene of one room, and maybe a little music to show the outside wind, the wintry night. You need only 4 actors, and therefore the monkey's paw has been and continues to be a favorite one-act play. I hope you'll go home, read the play, and enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Sandhan. All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.